Jamie from Hwa Chong Institute will continue the case for the proposition.
We believe in a twin solution, both to increase usage charges and reduce ownership charges, because we believe this best deals with the increasing population we're going to face, our desire for economic growth, and at the same time, our desire to curb congestion. And I'll prove to you this first with my 2 points of contention. First, what exactly are the benefits of having more vehicles on the road, and does it really exacerbate the problem of congestion? And secondly, I'll analyse the interests of the logistic companies and their concern about the increasing cost. So let's first look at the benefits of more vehicles. Now, the Ministry of Finance has already stated, Minister of Finance has already very clearly stated that we have two benefits from increasing the number of vehicles. First, more convenience to our Singaporeans. 10,000 more families can now send their children to school, children can wake up later perhaps, and more businessmen can perhaps clinch more deals in the afternoon when ERP charges are not so high. Now, we say with more people owning cars, there are tangible benefits, especially with populations increasing. We have to increase our car population proportionally to our increase in population and our desire for economic growth. No, thank you, sir. And more importantly, they bring up the point that people will be deterred from owning cars because of the increased usage charge. Now, first, we say that is not true, because people can buy cars and they can choose when to drive it. They don't have to drive it during the peak hours. And more importantly, this outrightly contradicts their own point about how increased cars will result from our policy. No, thank you, sir. But more importantly, really, let's look at the problem of congestion. Will increased vehicle population exacerbate the problem of congestion? I say no, because in our policy, we've taken care of that with increased usage charges. The quarterly reviews have been ongoing for more than 10 years, which ensures that the speed remains within a certain range, 45 to 65 km per hour on expressways. And this, by increasing charges when necessary, ensures that the speed remains optimal, that the most number of vehicles use that road at a certain time. This maximizes the efficiency of our public utility, namely the roads. And therefore, we say that the concerns they've raised do not really stand. And let me then move on to address the interests of the logistics companies and their worries about cost. Now, firstly, we want to clarify that the increased cost is offset at least slightly by the lower car ownership charges we offer to these logistics companies. And secondly, we want to put forth that our increased usage charge only applies to certain roads at certain times. And therefore, we believe, hang on a minute, sir, that this will increase the cost by a very small percentage, very much insignificant. Yes, sir.
Yeah, ma'am, but you are assuming that we are actually going to purchase vehicles. What about our current fleet of cars?
Yes, sir. Well, I believe that logistics companies, because of the high usage, have to constantly renew their vehicle population. And more importantly, I put forth to you, it's only a very small percentage of the journeys which will be impacted by the usage charge. And more importantly, I'm going to say now that the government has done a lot for the logistics industry. I'll give you the example of Trade Exchange, a neutral and secure IT platform network which enhances supply chain integration. And this is estimated to save businesses $75 million in 10 years. Given that these businesses have benefited so much from our business landscape, we do believe that it's fair for the government to ask that businesses take up social responsibility and pay taxes if they do contribute to social costs through congestion. And having shown you now that the concerns they've raised do not really hold, let me move on to my substantive on ensuring an equitable tax system. Now, it is essential today that we have accountability and fairness in our tax system. This involves taxing those who contribute to social costs. In the early 70s, car ownership charges were a convenient way of curbing the problem of congestion. However, we recognize that there is nothing fundamentally wrong with the act of ownership. The cost comes from using cars, and in our small city-state comes from the problem of congestion. And now, with advancements in technology, we have infrastructure like the electronic road pricing gantries available. This makes usage pricing extremely feasible. We thus believe that it is imperative for us to progressively transfer the burden of taxation from the act of ownership to people who actually use cars and contribute to congestion. This ensures that we do not unfairly prevent car ownership, but more importantly, the increased accuracy in apportioning costs allows the price mechanism to serve its purpose, to send accurate signals, allow consumers to make more accurate choices, and therefore modify their behavior accordingly. The increased usage charges reflect the social cost of congestion more accurately and allows consumers to reevaluate the use of cars during peak hours as opposed to public transport. And so at the end of the day, for the sake of a fair and equitable tax system that does not unfairly prevent people from owning cars yet tackles the problem of congestion, the government believes that this policy has to go through.
I now call Joseph of Meridian Junior College to advance the opposition's case.
Now, before I begin with my part, I would like to say that the proposition has maintained that with regards to more people being able to own cars, it does not directly mean that more cars will be on the streets. However, we feel that it is unrealistic to imagine that a car that can cost in the tens of thousands of dollars can only be used occasionally. Therefore, we suggest that you should nip the problem in the bud and not maintain that we should tackle usage charges only. Furthermore, the proposition also has stated that motor vehicles are expected to increase, and this should be reflected in our ERP. However, why not be reflected into our COE, ARF, and COE premium? One of the main thrusts that we have is to allow ownership costs to remain as they are. Furthermore, we feel that what the proposition has said about private transport about companies contributing to congestion and therefore needing to pay taxes, we feel that private transport companies and the people that we are representing do not contribute as much to congestion as private cars do. We feel that they should be taxed and we should not be taxed because we use the roads more efficiently because we have a higher rider commutership for every vehicle that we use. Yes.
Simply put, we want more cars because when we expect the population to increase by 2 million, we want more 9-year-olds not to have to wake up at 5 a.m. and we want them not to have to squeeze on buses.
The problem that you are stating is contrary to what you're saying, because the thing is that you assume that with more people being able to buy cars, it will lead to an increase in convenience. But why don't you tackle the fact that with more cars on the road, the people who already own cars will need to have to endure longer rush hours, they have to endure longer traffic jams precisely because there are more cars on the road. Now, on to my part. Ladies and gentlemen, in my part, I'll be taking this issue specifically from the stand of the private transport companies. I will show you why implementing the motion is not going to be beneficial to Singapore's economic growth. It could in fact be detrimental. Now, first I shall explain the nature of the private transport companies, and then tackle the problems of usage charges, then go on to tackling the ownership charges. Finally, I shall wrap up the case. No, thank you. Premium bus services by private firms present a viable alternative to private car users besides taxis, and they offer higher levels of comfort than our mass transit staples. This burgeoning premium transport industry is a prime choice for commuters who appreciate the rising cost of car usage but are also unwilling to jostle with the mass transit crowds. Needless to say, this is an industry that needs to be protected. So, on to usage costs. Imposing higher usage costs is not only going to make our businesses less profitable, which in the long run may lead to a lower number of these service providers, it will also mean that private car commuters will be less apt to use them as an alternative. And this is a situation that should be preferred. Now, taxis do not solve the problem as efficiently, since their capacities and average occupancy is still far outclassed by private bus services. Looking deeper, increasing these ERP usage costs is akin to substantial increase in recurrent variable costs for the companies, since predefined routes have to be followed, including those that enter the CBD. Furthermore, these trips are taken many times over in just one business day. Now, Oi Gyok Ling from the Straits Times quoted that whereas car owners can use roads, schedule their trips for times when ERP charges are lower, or catch a bus or train, what alternative is there for buses? Passing on these added costs to commuters is surely not an alternative to consider, since it all the more makes its mode of transport less undesirable. Now, to address the lowering of vehicle ownership costs, it is simply not going to be a balancing point for the increase in usage costs. Why do I say that? Firstly, we should note that the ownership charges that people had to pay contributed a sizable 1.1 billion to Singapore's budget the previous year, and any significant cut has to be considerably deliberated. So, unless the proposal is for a major cut in ownership charges, such as the ARF and COE premium, the long-run usage cost to transport companies is surely going to overrun any nominal reduction in ownership fees. In this case, no thank you. There is no reason to reduce ownership costs. All in, these companies are going to face a lower profitability when conversely, what we should be doing is to encourage, no thank you, their growth and not only get the private car owners on Singapore's roads reduced, but also increase commuter efficiency. Our industry is an essential one to Singapore's urban road congestion, and it would thus be highly detrimental to follow through with the motion. Once more, we find that the suggestion that my first speaker presented is a better alternative. Freeing up the roads by encouraging the individuals to patronize premium transport services while creating a conducive environment for the flow of goods is surely more conducive for the future growth of Singapore than punitive measures across all boards. Thank you.